All right, you guys, this is your 2.1 and 2.2 review. Section 2.1 was all about slope-intercept form, where slope represents the rise over the run of our line. So how it moves up and down versus to the right, because remember we always read a graph from left to right. And the first form we learned is that y equals mx plus b, slope-intercept form, where m is our slope and b is our y-intercept, which is that point where we touch the y-axis. So turn to page 62 and look at number 6. Number 6 asks us to sketch the graph of the equation. It gives us an equation in slope-intercept form, y equals negative 3/4 x plus 2, and we're going to sketch that graph, first by identifying the slope and then the y-intercept. According to this, the number in front of the x is negative 3/4, and so that is our slope, which a slope of negative 3/4 means that the graph moves down 3 and to the right 4 between each point on the line. The y-intercept would be the number that is not connected to the x, and in that case this is 2, which means we touch the graph at a y value of 2, so I plot that point, and then we move down 3 and over 4 to find our second point. Down 1, down 2, down 3, over 1, over 2, over 3, over 4, and now we have that point. Once we have 2 points, we can connect those 2 points, and that is enough to draw our line. And now we've sketched the graph of that equation by plotting the y-intercept on the graph and then using the slope to find a second point. Sometimes we go backwards with that and then give us the graph. Number 26 gives us a graph, and we are going to work to identify the slope and the y-intercept and use that to write the equation of the line. In this case, let's start with the y-intercept. That's where we truly touch that y-axis. We touch that y-axis at this point here, which if this is 2, that means this one is probably 3. So that y-intercept is at 3. And now to find the slope, we're going to move from left to right from one point to another. I can find another point on this line just by looking at where it intersects these horizontal and vertical lines. Now let's find the slope. Let's do our rise, which is our up or down. In this case, we have to move down, so we move down 1, 2, so the slope goes down 2, and then over 1. If we go down 2, we represent that as negative, so that's negative 2 divided by 1, which is negative 2. So if we were to fill this in, our y equals mx plus b, and I fill that in, that's y equals negative 2x plus 3. There's my equation. Let's do it again for 27. Let's identify that y-intercept. That y-intercept is at this point right here, which is negative 3. And let's find another point on the line, anything that goes through the perfect tick marks right here. Another one. Let's find the slope. We always go from left to right, so that means we're going to start here and figure out our rise and then our run. Go up 1, 2, 3, so we went up 3 and then over 1, so that's just 3 divided by 1, which is 3. If we fill in those blanks, our y equals mx plus b, that's y equals 3x minus 3, because we have a slope of 3 and a y-intercept of negative 3. All right, let's do another one. Sometimes they give you 2 points, this x1 and y1, or 2 ordered pairs, and ask you to write the equation in slope-intercept form that goes through those points. So if we're going to do slope-intercept form, we need a slope and we need a y-intercept. So let's find that slope first. I've labeled our 2 points. We were given point 1 and point 2, remembering that the coordinates go x comma y. So the first thing we need to do is calculate the slope. So we're going to do our y2, which is 2, minus our y1, which is 1, over our x2, which is 2, minus our x1, which is 0. So we get 2 minus 1 is 1, and 2 minus 0 is 2. Our slope is 1/2. Now we're going to use that slope to find the y-intercept. The y-intercept is represented by that b value. And if I need to know that, that means I need to solve for it. So I need to substitute in a y, and an x in order to find that b. Let's use the point 0, 1, which has an x value of 0 and a y value of 1, to calculate that b value. I'm going to place my y with 1, my m was 1/2, my x was 0, plus b. And now I can work to solve for b. I can do 1/2 times 0, which is just 0. So that's 1 equals 0 plus b. So that's just 1 equals b. Now I know my b value, I know my slope, I can fill in my blanks. Y equals mx plus b is y equals 1/2 x plus 1. Pay attention that slope is always just our number, our ratio of rise over run. Slope does not actually have the variable x with it. So if you're taking this test and it just asks you to find the slope, make sure you only type in the numerical answer, no variables. Your next section was section 2.2, point slope form, where you are given a point and the slope, and that was y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where this minus sign means opposite sign, and I've got that highlighted in yellow. That minus means the opposite y1 and x1 that's given to you, and m represents the slope. So let's practice here with number 16. They give us the point 2, -8, where 2 is our x and -8 is our y, and they tell us our slope. So let's go through and replace it, knowing that the minus y1 and minus x1 in our format means opposite. So that's going to be y and then opposite y1. Well, the y value they give us is -8, so I'm going to write plus 8 equals m. They tell us that it's -3/4, that comes from the problem, times x and then opposite x1. So I do the opposite of that x value. That x value is 2. The opposite is -2. And there, I did it. I wrote it in point slope form. Let's do it again with number 17, where they give us the x, y as -1, 4, with the m as 2/3. That's going to be y, and now we want opposite y1, so -4 equals m 2/3 times x, opposite x1, plus 1. We did it. Another type of question you're going to have for point slope form is looking at a graph and writing the equation in point slope form, where they specifically give you a point. Here they gave us the point 1, -3, and so the only other thing that we need is the slope. Luckily, we can look at the graph to calculate the slope. All we need is one other point, and we can find the slope between those two. So I look at this graph, and I want to find another point on the line that perfectly intersects our horizontal and our vertical tick marks, and there's one right down here. So let's calculate that slope. We do our rise over our run. So we go down 2 over 1, 2, 3. If I went down 2, that's negative, so that's -2/3. So if I wanted to write the slope, let's put this all together. That's y, and then opposite the y1, so that's going to be plus 3, equals -2/3 times x, opposite x1, minus 1. There's my equation of the line in point slope form. The other thing you might be asked to do is be given the equation and asked to graph it, which means we need to identify the point and then use the slope to plot another point. So if I want to ID my x, y, and I know that they're going to be opposites than what's in our problem. So here the minus y1 is plus 1, which means my y value is actually -1. Here my minus x1 is -1, so it means my x value is actually +1, which gives me a point on the graph when x is +1 and y is -1 of right down here. Then I can use this slope of 3 over 2, which 3 over 2 means we're going to go up 3 and then right 2 to find the second point on that line, and that's enough to connect the dots and draw a line. So let's go up 3, up 1, up 2, up 3, over 2. There'll be a point right here. We can connect the dots, to actually draw the line to sketch the graph. And that is section 2.2 and 2.3.